So, yes. Okay, so today we're going to look at our spiritual life maps. This is kind of a tabletop discussion, you and Jesus thing. And there is no right or wrong way to do this. So I'm going to go over what this is, because you may have done this before, or you may be like, what is this? Then we're going to have kind of an anchor scripture of where we find the idea of doing this in the Bible, kind of woven throughout our time together. You will get a chance to have some discussions around your table, and then you will get to make your life map. Now, here's the deal. I have a very whimsical relationship with Jesus. I'm very read my Bible, do some journaling, read a good article, read a book, write some things down. If that's not who you are with Jesus, that's fine. If there's something you don't want to do, that's fine. I'm sure we're all adults and you won't be terrible at your table. So if you just want to hang out and listen, that's fine too. So this is your time to connect with God and each other. You get to use it how you want to. So don't think you're going to hurt my heart if you're like, no, Leanne, I don't want to draw on that piece of paper. On your table, there are papers, big ones like this. Pencils and pens, you are welcome to use those or use your own pencil or pen. And then there's little cards that you will get to take these home, but we'll talk about what those are at the end, okay? So just so you kind of know what we all have. All right, so spiritual life mapping is something that I've kind of done through my life, and it's just a lens in the way you see God in the past and present. So, hold on. Oh, okay, it's not active. There we go. Okay, so a spiritual life map, we know what a map is. A map tells you what your directions are, where you're going, what you're doing, but it also can tell you where you come from. So when I think of a map, and I think most of you will actually get this reference with me, some of y'all still have AAA. Raise your hand if you have AAA. Yeah, okay. So back in the day, everyone had AAA, right? And you'd go there and you'd get those triptych maps that were narrow and tall, and they, your little travel agent would highlight where you're going. And they would always say to my dad, do you want us to route you back home? And he would always say, no, I'll just follow it backwards. Save the paper. Y'all, I can't read a map. I won't lie to you. I've never been able to learn. I struggle with that so badly, and I'm convinced it's because of that, but it's not. So when we look at our life map, we're not just looking the map of where we're going, because that's kind of an unknown, unlike the AAA map. We're also looking at where we've been to influence where we're going. So it's kind of a dig deep. So it's a way to reflect on your life story by identifying the moments and events that have shaped you. These are experiences from our worldviews, and they have a strong influence on how we see ourselves related to others around us. It's kind of that if we don't know who we are, we don't know how to act in the world kind of thing. So there's a quote I just said, and I forgot it was up there. So if you want to read that, you can. So what is spirituality? Now, this is very adaptable, and your spirituality is another thing that I can't tell you how to have it. I can just give you tools and resources on ways to connect spiritually with God. So spirituality, as a definition, is the awareness that there is more to life than what our physical senses can observe. So before we can begin talking about spiritual information, we need to understand current spirituality. So spiritual life mapping is a way to evaluate the present by exploring the past, if that kind of makes sense. So it also helps us talk about the future and think about oh, wait a minute, that was a really deep time in my life where I felt Christ. And look at that and just see, how do we kind of make that happen again? How do we connect with Christ in a way that shows us what is coming, that shows us to be okay with what is coming in our lives? So this verse is kind of the anchor of the whole thing. So I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago. I will consider all your works and meditate on all your mighty deeds. This is one of my favorite sections of Psalms, just because I really enjoy how it says, I will remember the deeds of the Lord. So a lot of times in our mind, they're kind of wired to remember like the negative in life. You know, you remember terrible things that happened. I like the phrasing of this because the deeds of the Lord, the wonderful things we've been given, the time we've always been provided for. You know, think about the Matthew text of even the birds and the lilies are cared for, so are we. So I really just enjoy this. So this is kind of our anchor scripture, if you will. I will remember your miracles of long ago, meaning I remember your miracles of baby Jesus, the death on the cross and resurrection, you know, Jonah with the really big fish, giving manna to Moses and those who were fleeing slavery. These are miracles to remember, but also miracles of our own lives or the stories passed down generationally. So I don't have a family that's like very, oh, here's a really big faith story. That's just not who my people are. But my best friend's mom always talks about the like very deep faith stories of her family. She has 6 sisters, and she can always pull God out of various things that happened in the lives of her and her sisters growing up. So if you don't have that, if you don't have someone who's like really shared a faith story with you of your own life, there's also so much to pull from in the world. And you know, the news is a little heavy, but like look for stories of faith and hope. Like, you know, and here's another thing, you can Google today's story of faith and hope in the world, and it will bring up really cool things. I'll do that sometimes just because I'm nosy and I want to know. It's fine. My baseline's just being nosy. It's fine. So I've got some really big key instructions for you, and you need to really follow along just because, as I told you, this is serious. There are no rules. There are not. So you can go with what you feel as we do this, and there's no wrong. I'm going to show you like my faith life map, and you can do it however you want. So another thing is you don't have to share yours if you don't have to. There'll be some table talk of like conversation questions that you can have with your table. Once again, you can also sit there, but you don't have to share it. You don't have to like wave your little map around and be like, this is what happened in 1994. You don't have to do that. If you want to, cool. Someone wants to listen, cool. But this is just a tool for you to look at God in your life. So I'm going to give you some time to kind of discuss these questions around your table. If you're like, oh, my table needs to be bigger, you're welcome to scoot over somewhere. But just think about these and talk about them. So what does the term faith journey mean to you? Is a faith journey always a straight path? So introduce the ideas in your conversation of twists, doubts, turns, restarts. You know, those happen in all of our lives. And then share a brief personal example of your own faith journey if you want to. So I'm going to leave these on here. Y'all can talk about them. So I'll give you like, we're going to say 5 minutes, but if you're really going, I'll give you like an extra 4. So go for it. Where that is. Do you want me to talk to you?
It was very strong, but I was
That was the only time.
I mean, in that aspect, I don't have the issues there, but it's your city. I know. It's like majority of the so we were able to go to so like Chandler and the Chillers, they went to house so church like majority of them yeah, you can go to so Well, like, a lot of people, like, I know a lot of people. But it's also like really so much stuff. Not just being able to say, like, Right, my class is in the so my class meeting for my middle school class is 300, but I got to Lines, which is like the second, it's like construction software. It's like two schools go to Lines and then those are just like the oh, it definitely is. I'm just to be it's up there, but actually yeah, no, I don't there's nothing. It's really just
All right, folks, let's give it like one more minute and be wrapping up, please. No, just be wrapping it up. Okay, everyone, let's bring it back. Okay, so what I really loved is that every time I looked at y'all, you were intently like talking and listening, and that was really kind. So great work. Do you feel like you learned something new about someone at your table or just something fascinating? Yeah. Okay, great. And a key to remember is that everyone's journey is so different. And one of the things I really work for me personally, and part of this is because I'm nosy, is like I'll own it. Sometimes I'll hear a story and be like, okay, well, that wasn't that hard, whatever. But then I have to think like, but what happened in the rest of their lives that made this be like the tipping point? And so as we hear about folks' spiritual journeys, there's so much behind there that maybe we don't share or we don't know to share. Like we don't know God was involved in that just because there's so many other things. So that's just key things to keep in mind. So one of the things as we look at our life map and our life moving forward and the past is just kind of a life event inventory. And I'll read this to you now, and then when we get ready to do our papers, I'll put it back up. So things that are, of course, important is your birthplace, early memories, lows, grief, loss, change, doubt, turning points or crisis, major family events, key relationships, family, friends, mentors. And then there's God moments, times that you felt close or distant to God. A thing to remember is both of those are really important. A lot of people feel that kind of grief, I guess, if they feel distant from God. But sometimes that's where the most growth comes when you're climbing back to God. Highs, joys, successes, peaceful seasons. One of the things I really think about my like faith journey is what I do when I feel like I'm in a high, a joy, a peaceful season is really what sustains me when I'm in a low. And I wish everyone knew that. You know, I talk to people a lot and they're like, well, I'm just going through this rough season. And I always think like, and I wish you had a foundation of faith before this to really carry you through. Church experiences are really crucial. You know, you'll hear folks who have been in the same church their whole lives, like some of y'all, some who have moved a lot and bounced church to church. There's people who struggle. I hear this, I'm going to say, weekly. I've just never been able to find a church I like. And I really think a lot about that, not in a negative way, because I think there are particularly rural areas or different regions that the faith expression through church is different than it is in others. But then I also think like, wow, their faith life must be really chaotic. So something else that sticks out to you, there's always something else. Like no one lives the same life. And so if something else comes up, do it, write it down. So I'm going to give you some examples of the maps. So in front of you, there's a stack of papers. Y'all can each get one, unless you don't want to do this. And once again, you won't hurt my heart. You kind of get two options. So on one side, you're going to see this. And some of you might feel like this is what your life has looked like. And some of you might feel like this is what your life has looked like. So you can pick either side. There's no wrong. They're double-sided, so flip it and decide. Some of you just might want more room. So I'm going to show you my life map, and it's just like kind of wild. And you'll see at the bottom where I kind of took my kind of inventory. So, you know, I was born Western Kentucky. I have a great love for like rural areas and Western Kentucky, and I think it really nurtured a lot of my faith. I grew up kind of on a parcel of land that my great aunt and uncle had bought and then divvied up a couple of acres to family members. So I grew up with the majority of my mom's family living very close, and I think that was really good for a lot of reasons. I also, the last time I checked, the population of the town I grew up in was 600, and it was about that when I was a kid. So like Walmart, 20 minutes away. If you went to the city, which currently is 30,000 people, it was way less than that when I was growing up. It was kind of like a big thing, and we just had a good life. It was very quiet, and I enjoyed that. So at 6, my dad got transferred or promoted, and we moved to South Carolina for 2 years, which was kind of a last-ditch effort for my parents to save their marriage. And my brother and I knew that. We were like, okay. So then when I was 8, my parents got divorced and we moved back to Kentucky. So that was kind of one of those like whatever things of like, okay, my parents are divorced. This is weird. My dad stayed in South Carolina for several years after that. But we got to move back to Kentucky. Like I got to go back to my home church. All my friends are already there, my relatives. So there was like good and bad in that, which is the pattern we see in a lot of our lives. So I have always been active in faith and my community. Like I was in a lot of groups and clubs and things for that. So that just kind of happened. And then when I was 15, I was really just discerning some kind of call to ministry. I grew up in a Presbyterian church, but it was kind of Baptist adjacent, and like women weren't really recognized in any forms of ministry. So that was a challenge and like weird and a joy. When I was 16, so my dad had a stroke and he ended up dying from that stroke. But also in the same year, I kind of had to shift and figure out what I was doing because I didn't have 2 parents to pay for college. Like, what do we do here? And I got a full ride to college. And so that was such a great joy. And my friends are still paying back student loans and I went for free. And I'm still thankful for that. So also, just because everything else happened, I kind of got tired of everyone and graduated high school early and just went on to college, and it was great. And then I graduated from, and you'll see like I made a mistake on mine and I left that because like it may not be pretty when you're writing it. I graduated college and then I went straight to seminary where I also got a full ride. And I just really saw that as like affirmation of what my educational calling was. I did not want to graduate with a lot of loans. I didn't have parents who could pay for it. I could get some scholarships, but getting those full rides were really like, okay, this is where you need to be. And people will ask me like, why'd you go to seminary in Memphis? Because most people haven't heard of it. It's not the big ones like, oh yeah, it was free. And I'll never forget this. This man asked me, and he was like some big dude in the Episcopal Church. And he said, so how did you discern your educational journey? I was like, it was free. He was like, well, that will do it, won't it? I was like, yes, it will. And I had a great time. I loved both experiences so much. And they were wonderful. So at 25, I graduated. Mhm. Just let it roll. So I worked for churches kind of like all through this time. So once again, my faith has been weaved in. And then I graduated when I was 25. And so I grew up a Cumberland Presbyterian, and that's what my ordination is. So I was ordained then. And then, we just kind of like have weaved on the past couple of years. When I was 30, though, my Aunt Mary died. Now, my Aunt Mary, and this is really when I did kind of this study a few years ago and really figured this out. My Aunt Mary was my like deepest connection to faith. So she was my grandmother's sister. She was 70 when I was born. And like my favorite toy growing up was one she gave me for my first Christmas. I used to go over to her house multiple times a week. She taught me to sew. We had lots of conversations, and she really just kind of ingrained in me, if you've got it, give it. If someone's having a hard time, listen to them. And she did so many cool things. Like she mailed people cards. She called people. Her and her husband were the ones who originally bought the land that I grew up on. They had a farm in Illinois for many, many years and moved back to Western Kentucky. My great uncle was one of the, I don't know, he was something with Caterpillar, like before it became big. And so they lived up there many years. And when they moved back, she called and kept up with most of the folks that worked for them on that farm or that she worked with. And so that's been something I've really tried to keep in my life is like, oh, those connections and community. Aunt Mary just, even when I went to college and seminary, she would always make sure I had enough money or enough, people to listen to me or whatever. Her favorite thing was for me to pick her up and us go to the Dollar General. And she also taught me to really just enjoy simple things in life. So as I did this assessment like years ago, I realized what a big part of my faith Aunt Mary was, which made me think of like how to give that faith to other people. And then we get to the now, and I'm just still looking on my spiritual journey, still looking for God in all things. And that's the goal, is to really look at kind of the highs and lows of our lives and how faith was present. Yeah.
So I would thought you'd take the birth, you go up and down
Mhm.
and flat for a while and down, and up sharp. And yours is straight with this little ticks, basically.
Yeah. I just feel like my life's just kind of in a straight line with lots of things happening. But that's why you have like the curvy side. You may not feel that way. Oh, this side's blank. You have the curvy side on your paper. Yeah. This is kind of how I work with life really visually, of like all my little rabbit trails in life. Another way that I really look at this straight line is I see God was present in everything in like kind of a evenly woven way, and other people may not feel that, and that's okay. So that's where I come from. And then I did kind of a little chart at the bottom of some of the things that were part of my spiritual assessment. You're fine. No, there's no right and wrong.
Be straight.
Use the other
and
side.
It won't be curvy.
Mhm.
It'll be, like.
Do it.
It's not.
Like
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
Side.
That's okay. Yeah, there's no wrong way. And that's, this is what I feel. But I needed to make these little notes at the bottom. So I think one of the ways I've really seen God in my life is my faithful friendships. I met my best friend like I had really good friends growing up, but like my ride or die, if you will, I met her my freshman year of college. We have been just the best of friends. And I always say like, no, I don't tell, like if someone tells me not to tell something, I won't, but I might tell Paige, and she's not gonna tell anyone. Church camp has been such a vital part. I was telling Marion and Brooke, like I still volunteer for a week of church camp every year. I really think that has affected my faith journey to get away in a place where it's just kind of you and God and community. And then, of course, Aunt Mary and being active in my faith and community kind of constantly is what's just been a big part. Some people have not had that. There's folks who didn't find their faith until older in life or until very recently. There's folks that have changed denominations or beliefs or whatever, and that's fine too. There's no wrong. So let's see. So it's time for you to map. You can do it however you want. You can make big notes. You can draw pictures. You can do anything. These are your life inventories. So for me, making little notes at the bottom really helped me kind of like look at it. You can scribble things out. It does not have to be pretty. And if you want more sheets to do this at home later, I'll give them to you. Mhm.
That page right there.
Mhm.
May send that out.
Yeah, of course. I'm gonna make a note to send this page out, otherwise it won't happen. So yeah.
It's our church last week. Fine singer, but I feel out of place, you know, without you being there.
Just call her, text her. Consider email.
My pastor now. Well, yeah,
You better.
there was always a leader except for my very first church. Yeah.
She loves those students.
Yeah, that's when, it was unexpected. It was unexpected.
They're very good. Dad loves her.
Real quick.
That's when it started.
And also, I'll be working on
Exactly, that wasn't, I thought, yeah, imagine they tried to teach you how to do it.
My mother is slow, very much. Man, she thinks it's really nice. And I said, well, you know, why not? And it's, that's love or something. Do that. If you were transferring all the rest of the so here he really got them with that. And so that is his own. Oh, she's working.
Not lots of words.
She's still got all her back.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's my skill.
And she is.
I am.
Very.
That was one of the things that, yeah.
Big building. Small building.
Site. High school. I do not believe and he's not my birthday on that was very long.
Okay, so take a few more minutes to write, and it's okay if you don't finish yours. You can take it home. So then we'll come back.
I remember one of the. And one right now.
Okay, let's bring it back. You can take your paper home and finish it later if you want more papers. And I can post these on Realm if you want more. Do it. What I really loved, like looking around, is I saw that some people like turned their pages sideways and wrote this way. I saw some people like flip and use both sides. Some people drew big, some people wrote small. And that's the key. You know, I say this and I really do mean it and believe it. I can't tell you how to engage with Christ spiritually. I can give you tools and resources, but like that's such a personal thing to each of us. So go with what you feel. You know, there's not a right or wrong on how to encounter Christ. It's really a lot about these things, you know, what has happened in your life and your story. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions just to think about. We don't have to, oh, hey, Brooke, can you click that for me? It's okay. Just for you to think about, because we don't have a ton of time left because y'all are just really thriving in this. But looking through your stories, where was God? And these are just some questions to think about. Looking back on your inventory, do you clearly see God at work? I can tell you in mine, the answer is yes. But honestly, losing my Aunt Mary was where I really realized, oh my gosh, like that was the pivotal person in my faith for my entire life. And like most people don't get the joy of having a great aunt who dies at over 100 and being such a part of the majority of their lives. So she was 101 and she lived at home until 2 weeks before she died. She broke her hip and went to the hospital and died. Yeah. Yeah. She killed a snake in her front yard the day before she went to the hospital. And like, yeah. And so, you know, those are that like she was just such a pivotal part of my faith. But I didn't realize that until after she had died. And I mean, there's nothing I would have done different. Aunt Mary knew I adored her. I always told her. But just knowing that has really, I think, given me a different outlook on how to share my faith with others in a lot of different ways. So looking back on your inventory, where do you see God clearly at work? And where was it hard to see God at the time of an event, but you look back now and you see God's presence is clear? Or maybe like you're in something right now, and that's a little bit of hope that'll pull you through. You're like, okay, one day I'm going to look back on this and I'm going to know where God was. And I think for me, that's always been a little glimmer of hope. If it is not for you, that is fine, but that's something to consider.
Sorry. How soon can you pop those on? Well,
This afternoon?
like, after church?
Yeah, like 2 to 3 p.m. Well, I've got to eat lunch, Brad. We're going to go 2 to 3 p.m. Mm-hmm. We're going to do it. Yeah, I'll put all the slides on Realm for you. And if you don't Realm, you know, see me afterwards and I'll write your email address down. So kind of the question is like, what now? You know, I've had you do these like random things and you may be like really in this and you're like, oh, I got this. This is cool. I love it. Or you're like, Leanne, what are we doing here? No wrong answers. So looking at a life through a lens of faith is really what the idea is on what this will show you. You get to see all of these things and maybe you didn't realize where God was in them. And so it's just training your mind. It's that idea of when you look for God, you'll find God. So the life lenses, and so I'm going to say this, I have like 20/20 vision. And so I don't really understand what it's like to wear glasses every day, but I do understand what it's like to turn a light on, or all of a sudden, you know, the sun goes down and maybe you see fireflies in the distance. I can kind of envision those things as similar to this. So you can use the wording you want. So it's however you kind of have that aha moment in your life and the way you look at it thereafter. So the past, And you don't have to write these down because I do have fun little cards on the table for you. You can reach and grab one if you'd like. Where has God been faithful? The present is where might God be at work now? And that's that glimmer of hope sometimes we need when things just feel in that valley. And the future, what spiritual practices will help you notice God going forward? And that's like just a me struggle and I told y'all this a minute ago, I sometimes hear someone just lamenting something and I think, oh, just wish you had a foundation of faith before this. And so that's something I work really hard in my life to maintain. And what that is for me will look completely different for a lot of you. Some of you may be the same, like I read my Bible every day, I journal, I listen to some podcasts, like I listen to my Jesus music in the car a couple of days a week when I really need that. It might look different for all of y'all, and that's okay. So you can take those cards home and think about that as you're reflecting on your life and looking forward. So there's also kind of like a daily challenge thing, and this is just an option. You can do whatever you want, but I love a little challenge. So this is on the other side of your card, I believe. And so spend 3 minutes quietly with God, which if you're not used to that, it's going to feel like an eternity, honestly. And ask yourself at the end of every day, where did I see God today? So studies show that anxiety is lessened if you take some kind of quiet meditation time on your higher power. For us, that's God and Jesus. And if you do some kind of gratitude exploration. Now, I can tell you more days than not, what I am most grateful for is that I got to get up and walk my dog. Like that, I just feel so in tune with God and my life when I have like those 2 miles every morning. And when it rains, I can tell I just don't love the world as much. So what I'm saying is it doesn't have to be a huge, wow, I'm so grateful for this. We're not going to win the lottery every day. Some days it's just I went out to eat, or the weather was nice, or it didn't rain on me going into Sunday school. And that's okay. God is also in the small moments, just like those wow moments. And then pray, how can I be more aware of you in what comes next? And that goes back to, if you look for God, you're going to find God. This is a scripture that I just really like as we look forward to who God is and where God is interacting in our lives. So Psalm 105:4, and Psalm 105 is a great one for this whole practice of seeing God in our lives. Seek the Lord and his strength. Seek his presence continually. This is the NRSV version. The New Living says constantly. So if you look at this at other translations, it's super fun to see the different word use. But I think a lot of us have been taught the scripture from Colossians of pray without ceasing. We've been taught like pray constantly, but seeking the Lord and his strength and then seek his presence constantly. You can do that through prayer. But also, I think for me, this encompasses a lot more of my faith journey of like, okay, God, where are you right now? Where are you in this? A lens that I look at my life a lot, particularly when I do stuff for my job here at the church, is like, where is Jesus in that? Like, what makes this a faithful practice of serving God that's different from a social club or, a friend group? Because Jesus can be in all those, but like, it's kind of our game here to like be all in on Jesus. And that's it. That's all I got. You are invited to take these cards home. There's extras if you need them, if you want to give one to a friend. You can take the papers home. There's a few of these up here, and I really will put all of it on Realm for you this afternoon. Promise. Yes. Yes. So you are free to go.
I just want to say, I want to thank.
Here, Marian. Marian.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I forgot about that. I just want to thank Leanne for kicking our season off today. You always give us great exercises. Next class will be liturgical line dancing, but that was an inside joke. Cause she sent that to me as her topic and I went, okay, this is gonna be good. Then she proceeded to tell me, just kidding. But we have a great season ahead of us. Next week, Ellen will be our speaker. And gosh, I can't remember the exact title, but it has a lot to do with communicating with others and how to feel comfortable always communicating and having an open mind of listening. So that will be really good. I think I shared a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, we will be having guest speakers from 3 of our missions. The first one will be Gateway to Grace this month. Next month will be Austin Street, which is near and dear to my heart. And third, which I'm excited about, is Otto Middle School will be coming and talking with us. And I think we need to kind of, we all talk about the uneasiness that we may feel sometimes at these times. It's been just kind of a lot for us all to comprehend as we're trying to comprehend how it is affecting us individually, as our faith, as this. These 3 missions will be, they're living it. So I ask when the missions are talking that we come with a very open heart of what is going on with them as we do changes across things. So a lot of great speakers coming about this summer, and then we'll wrap up on the 24th, which will be kickoff, 24th of August, which will be kickoff heading into the fall season, which, I mean, it's June 1st. My mind is blown right now. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for all you do in participating in our great congregation, our great leadership of education. It is, I think, one of the secret gifts of Canyon Creek. So everyone have a good Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you.